Hello, welcome to Pinetop Jackson 2, the channel where history comes alive in documentaries and urban exploration. I'm Pinetop, and this building behind me, trying not to slide into the Rouge River. This is what's left of the John Carr and Sons Bottling Company. Today we'll get to take a look inside. We'll examine the bottling machinery and the syrups and chemicals that were left behind. We'll learn who John Carr was and talk about the history of some of the pops that he bottled here, including the Oh So Good pop. We'll look at vintage maps from the area, and we'll hear firsthand accounts from Detroit residents who actually bought pop from inside this building. John Carr was born in 1883. He was a Hungarian immigrant who worked in the industrial village of Delray, Michigan, which became a part of Detroit in 1906. Carr began his life of service to his hardworking neighbors with a saloon called the John Carr Cafe. Here's a photograph from 1908. John is the one in the white apron posing with a group of Hungarian factory workers. This is John and his wife Ellen behind the bar, with a couple of patrons off to the side. Ellen Carr died in 1914, and a few years later, John decided to give up on the saloon. He did remarry right away, but we're not sure what he did for work for the next 5 years or so. But in 1922, Carr had the opportunity to get into the carbonated beverage bottling industry by purchasing the A.R. Andrews & Sons Bottling Works. The Andrews building was over here on Lyle Street, and looking at a modern map, you can see this whole area was wiped out for the wastewater treatment plant that was built in 1940. Carr and his sons didn't wait that long though before they moved the entire operation over to this riverfront property, which is the building we will explore today. John Carr and Sons had their own line of soft drink called Gold Rock, often sold in 1-quart bottles, the K-Quart. Down here it says John Carr Bottling, Detroit, Michigan. It's got the ingredients on the back. The pop contains carbonated water, sugar, citric acid, and flavors. But later they started bottling another brand, and this is what they became known for. This is what the tattered remnants of the neighborhood still remember them for, their Oh So Good pop. The Oh So soft drink company started out with a slightly different name, and only one flavor. So Grape was established in Chicago in 1941. Here's an ad from January 1945, advertising new availability in Bloomington, Illinois. This ad from early 1946 talks about a profit-sharing plan, and this is important because this is how John Carr got involved with Oh So soft drinks, as a franchise bottler. The ad lists their Chicago address, and notice the company is still called So Grape. Here's another profit-sharing ad, this one from December 1946, and now it's called the Oh So Grape Company. The company started moving away from the grape moniker, calling their product Oh So Beverages, probably due to more flavors being added to the lineup. John Carr and Sons were very successful with the Oh So pop. They wound up moving 20 miles away to a town called Belleville. Father and sons would take turns commuting to Delray to oversee the bottling operations, while the family started a farm in Belleville, and they called the farm Gold Rock after their first line of soft drinks. John Carr Sr. died in 1951. His oldest son, John II, died tragically in 1954. The youngest son, Ed Carr, kept the bottling plant going until the early 1970s when he sold the business to a Hungarian neighbor named John S. Maygordy. Maygordy ran the shrinking company for about a decade. Sometime in the mid-1980s, the business and property were purchased by Sandor Al Radic. But by then it was really too late. Small soft drink companies that were struggling to compete with Faygo and Vernors were absolutely decimated by the growing global power of Coca-Cola and Pepsi. Sometime in the early 1990s, the John Carr Bottling Company was done. After the final closure, the historic building was used for storage. This boat sat outside for over a decade before the city of Detroit recently hauled it off to the scrapyard. I happened to be in the right place at the right time to watch it go. I had assumed the boat belonged to Al Radic, but later I spoke with Radic's daughter-in-law, and she told me that Al didn't really own the pop shop for very long. He sold it in the late 1980s. So whoever bought the property from him most likely owned the boat, and probably the race cars left in the garage too. These photos were taken by a friend several years ago. That 1972 Plymouth Satellite Sebring was not there when I visited. This car was, though. We saw many of these crates and bottles labeled Wins and Glenrock. At first I thought one of the final owners must have become a franchisee bottler for this company out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. But later I learned it was a common practice for small beverage companies to buy up bottles in bulk from other companies and fill them with their own pop, sometimes relabeling the bottles, but usually just leaving them as is. wait till you get down before I go. Yes, step on the stud. Not bad, all right. Easier than it was on the way up?
Yeah.
Okay. Now you've seen the inside of the John Carr Bottling Works. There was a little bit more upstairs. It was an apartment with a small kitchen and a rickety balcony hanging off back. But it was trashed. I didn't get any good footage up there besides these telephone disconnection notices. But we should talk about the exterior a little more. This is what the property looks like today, but prior to June 2025, it looked like this. Yes, that is an old bank building attached to the side of the pop shop. It was built sometime in the 1910s. After the bank moved out, it was used by a tool manufacturing company in the 1940s. But no one knew what the bank building was used for after that. I don't know anyone who's been inside. There didn't seem to be a way inside from the pop shop. In April 2025, part of the back wall of the bank collapsed. Turns out there were thousands of Oso bottles stored in there. The neighboring business shot this pic and it got shared to a bottle collecting group on Facebook. Their fenced-in side lot butted up against the bank, so I couldn't get that view, but I did revisit the John Carr shop when the river was low enough for me to carefully climb out of the basement door and see for myself the pieces of Michigan history falling into the Rouge River. The city broke down the boarded up door to the bank in preparation for demolition, and a resident was able to take some shots of the inside. Look at that, floor to ceiling with bottles and crates. And check out this board pried off the window reveals painted lettering, proving that this building was later used by the John Carr Company, at least for storage. The structurally unsound bank building was demolished in June 2025. I fear the bottling works is not far behind. I'm just happy to have had the opportunity to see the place and capture these photos, this footage, so that now, even when the brick and mortar is gone, the memory will live on. See you next time.